Congratulations, you're the first person to successfully travel back in time to ancient Rome. Uh-oh, looks like your time machine is out of juice and electricity won't be invented for at least another 2000 years. So I guess you'll be stuck here for a while. Of course you can stay here, praying that Jupiter will bless your rip-off sci-fi trope with some much needed electricity, but Jupiter isn't the nicest of guys, so I wouldn't count on it. No, I suggest you pick yourself up by the bootstraps and get out there and get a job. Luckily you spent years studying Latin, so at least there won't be a language barrier. But no, we actually have very little idea what Latin sounded like when spoken. However, for the sake of this video, we're just going to assume that everybody speaks Latin exactly the same way it sounds in your head. We can't look for work on an empty stomach, so let's go find something to eat and drink. Modern day Italy is renowned for its world-class cuisine. Rome, less so. Hope you're hungry for some cena, or hot water with wheat, lard and salt. If you're lucky we could even get dessert, which was actually the same dish, only served with honey instead of salt. Well, let's wash it down with some quality sweet wine. Though I should probably warn you that drinking that could lead to lead poisoning. The Romans were really fond of lead. Not only were the drinking water pipes made out of this spicy metal, they also liberally used it as an artificial sweetener in both wine and food. But they didn't only get lead poisoning from consuming food, they also plastered their faces full of it, as it was a core component of many cosmetical products. So maybe just skip the drink for today. Okay, now to look for a job. Hey, who are those fellas with the very obvious human-sized fishing net? Uh-oh, looks like you're going to be a slave. Well, get ready for a life without rights, opportunity or happiness. But don't worry, you still have options. For example, highly educated slaves often lived lives of relative comfort and had to work as a teacher, manager, accountant, chef, artisan or physician. These slaves usually lived in the houses of rich Roman families and had their every needs taken care of. For these slaves there were even well-defined paths to freedom and Roman citizenship. But sadly your 3000 hours in League of Legends don't translate well into actual usable skills, so that kind of slavery probably isn't for you. No, a career more fitting for your Dorito-stained ass would be toiling in the fields or in the mines until you die from old age at the age of 32. Or you could try your luck in the arena as a gladiator and maybe earn your freedom. Being a gladiator really wasn't as bad as people nowadays think. For example, most fights didn't even end in death. This had a very simple reason. Gladiators were really stupidly expensive. Imagine you were a slave owner and you just bought a young, strong man. You trained and fed him, only for him to end up dead within 20 minutes. Apart from the moral implications, that's just a very bad return on investment. No, gladiatorial fights were more like a WWE fight than the Hunger Games. Gladiators often had a distinct look, large fanbase, and their names were widely known. Some even got so popular that they were able to retire as a free man. But those odds are very, very slim. Now it's much more likely you'd end up being shish kebabbed on the Emperor's birthday. But let's say that you, against all odds, managed to do the impossible and earn your freedom in the arena. Let's say you were a part of the Roman nobility. How would you survive? Look at you, you really made it. You survived all the hardships of being a slave and a gladiator. After ending the lives of countless men, women and animals, you finally earned your freedom. Anyway, retiring after a long career as a gladiator has its perks. Apart from having wealth beyond imagining, gladiators were seen as the epitome of Roman virtues and values. That meant that the ladies would be swooning over you like flies over the corpses of your gladiator colleagues. Yes, you could truly count yourself among the Roman elite. Your newfound wealth and status also meant that you didn't have to eat the same gruel those dirty, stinking commoners had to eat. No, as a Roman noble you were entitled to the best the empire had to offer. Your regular daily meals would somewhat resemble what we eat today. Think about stuff like bread, vegetables, sausages and fish. Which is pretty boring, so let's talk about Roman banquets instead. The private banquets of the Roman elite were often described as a feast for the senses. A host would spare no expense to impress their guests. And boy would your senses be feasting. These banquets would go on all night, with plenty of food, wine, theatre performances and prostitutes. While you perverts probably want me to keep talking about the prostitutes, they are by far the least interesting part. No, it's the food that's actually interesting. These banquets would feature many expensive and exotic dishes. Here are some foods you could expect in no particular order. Bird tongues, Usually peacocks, but there are also accounts of flamingo and nightingale tongues being used. I understand the appeal of a mute peacock. After all, they sound just like flamboyant seagulls, with the only reason people keeping them around being critic privilege. But the idea of muting a nightingale, a bird renowned for its beautiful song, that's just evil. Anyway, let's move on to the other affronts to God the Romans might serve you. Another staple of a banquet would be exotic meats. Think about stuff like giraffe, hippo, lion, honestly just the entire cast of Madagascar and more. These animals might sound super over the top and honestly almost excessive enough to make even Slanesh uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong, it was, but there was some logic behind it. The Colosseum wasn't just a place where many gladiators and condemned criminals got turned into parked tents. Many animals suffered the same fate. And the Romans are anything if not efficient. After all, it would be a shame to let several tons of perfectly edible elephant meat go to waste now, wouldn't it? Okay, I had written about 2 extra pages on the weird food you could expect at such a banquet, and honestly I'm scared I even got that far. Maybe I'll include it in a later video, but for now I want to skip to what is in my opinion the most interesting thing served at these banquets. Fried, stuffed dormice. Yep, Tom and Jerry would look very different if it took place in ancient Rome. Jerry would be cut open, have his organs removed, his corpse would be dipped in honey, a mixture of pork and pine nuts would be put in the place where his organs just were, and he would be fried in extra virgin olive oil only to be eaten whole, his small bones delivering a satisfying crunch as a fat gout-ridden Roman chows down on him, only to pick up the desecrated corpse of another mouse before even having swallowed Jerry. Luckily, this barbaric food is not around anymore today, apart from parts of Slovenia and Croatia where it's still eaten. Anyway, I think we've had enough food for now. Let's go to your home. As a member of the Roman upper class, you don't have to live in the decrepit slums that the commoners live in. No, you are entitled to a beautiful villa. Look at that. Your atrium filled with beautiful white marble statues. Contrary to popular belief, Roman statues actually weren't white. They were painted. Recent studies found minuscule paint residue on multiple ancient Roman statues. So, for example, the Augustus of Prima Porta, one of the most famous Roman statues out there, wouldn't have looked like this. Rather like this. Oh, my bad. Okay, maybe your house is on fire. But don't worry, it's going to be fine. There's enough distance between your house and the houses of others, so this isn't going to be the Great Fire of Rome 2.0. And look, the fire department's here to help save your house. There is, however, a catch. The firefighters will only save your house if you sell it to them for pennies on the dollar, or sestertius on the aureus, if you will. But hey, don't be sad. Look, the mailman's here, and he's accompanied by 2 soldiers. Let's see, what's this? Oh, would you look at that? It's your note. Apparently the emperor deemed your wealth and popularity a threat to his position and ordered your execution. Since you're a Roman citizen, you luckily won't get the same treatment Jesus, Saint Peter or Saint Andrew got. No, your execution will be a nice, good old-fashioned beheading. However, there is a way out of this. If you would kill yourself before your execution, then your name would retain its honor and all your belongings would go to your family instead of the state. Wow, you're in luck. Jupiter blessed your time machine with some much needed electricity. You can finally go back home and play League of Legends while chatting with your AI girlfriend. Or do you want to stay here and try your luck in another part of the Empire as a legionnaire? Wow, you really are stupid. You had a chance to escape this stinking hellhole and you chose to stay and join the Roman army. Honestly, I wonder what goes on in that brain of yours. Oh well, it's your party, so let's see what your life as a Roman legionary would look like. Just a disclaimer. Yeah, I know, Rome is an empire spanning thousands of miles and lasting literal centuries, yada yada yada, etc, etc. Well, this video is listed as entertainment, not education, so if you want actual reliable peer-researched fact-checked information, go read a book, you nerd. With that out of the way, let's see how screwed you'd be if you chose to be a legionary. Being a Roman legionary wasn't actually the worst job in the world. You got decent pay, access to healthcare, and there was even a retirement plan where the legionary would get his own plot of land somewhere in the empire. That in a time where the average retirement plan was just to die before reaching retirement age. Though there is a bit of a caveat with this retirement. you would only be awarded that plot of land after 25 years of service. That means that if you joined up at 18, you'd retire at the age of 43, which sounds amazing in today's time, but in ancient Rome, the average life expectancy was around 41 years, so good luck with that. When thinking about Roman legions, your mind probably goes to men with large rectangular shields walking in tight formations, outmaneuvering and beating armies that outnumber you 4 to 1. And while yes, that was part of being a legionary, it wasn't what you would actually be doing most of the time. You weren't just a soldier. No, you were much more than that. You were cheap, disposable labor. Some of the greatest feats of Roman engineering, like Hadrian's Wall, the aqueducts and the Roman road network, were built by Roman soldiers. But most of the time you wouldn't even be doing that. No, being a legionary was actually very boring. But for the sake of this video, let's just assume that your legion is called into action and that you would have to defend the empire against endless hordes of barbarians. How would that go? First of all, let's see what your equipment would look like. Of course you had your famous rectangular shield, also known as the scutum, your helmet or galea, your armor or lorica segmentata, 2 heavy javelins or pila for ranged combat, and your trusty gladius or sword if you want to stab someone from up close. Of course there are also other weapons that could be assigned to you. For example a ballista or a scorpio, both of which were very useful for turning barbarians into a red pulp from a distance. If you were especially lucky, or unlucky depending on how you look at it, you could become your legion's aquilifer, or standard bearer. You would carry your legion's battle standard, or aquila, into battle. And boy did the Romans take these standards seriously. Losing an aquila would bring great shame upon a legion, and the Romans would do anything to get the lost aquila back. For example, after the catastrophic defeat at the Teutoburg forest, 3 aquila were lost, and the Romans spent literal decades trying to get them back, like some sort of capture the flag but on steroids. So on the one hand you would be relatively safe, since your entire legion is hell-bent on protecting you, but on the other hand you have quite literally an enormous target on you. So maybe just being a regular soldier is safer. Anyway, let's talk about what these battles could look like. Let's say you would have to fight humanity in its lowest form, the Frisians. For those of you who don't know who the Frisians are, they are people that lived in the north of what is now the Netherlands and Germany, and they are a bunch of large, strong barbarians with more muscle than brain and a stubbornness that will put even a donkey to shame. I'm part Frisian myself, so I can say that. Probably. Anyway, you would stand next to your fellow legionnaires forming a wall of shields. Over the horizon you would see a tidal wave of men running towards you, screaming at the top of their lungs while waving their weapons in the air. After shitting yourself, your first instinct might just be to flee the battle, sneak onto a submarine and live out the rest of your life in Argentina. But that would be very stupid. Not only because your fat ass would be incapable of sneaking, but also because desertion would mean one of the worst punishments known to man: decimation. With decimation, not only you would be put to death. That would be too lenient. No. The entire cohort, which consisted of 480 men, would be divided into groups of 10. Every group then had to draw lots, and the one who drew the shortest straw had to be beaten or clubbed to death by the other 9. Wow, that's dark. Maybe it's best to just go back home to the 21st century. Looks like your time machine's still here and still charged. Well, that's what you get for trusting Jupiter to charge your time machine. That's all for today folks, thank you for watching and I'll see you when I see you.